So, a new idea is coming out of California, and for the last decade, I think California has been on a roll with bad ideas. So, I'm not wouldn't hold my breath for any kind of any kind of free market fundamentalism or any kind of deregulation that would actually boost the economy. There's a new idea here, and one lawmaker he's proposing a let's see a 32-hour work week instead of 40 hours. Well, here's the thing: you can still work 40 hours, but you'll get paid for one of the days already as overtime. I'm sure they already. I mean, obviously they already have a lot of laws about after 8 hours you get paid overtime, you get paid on weekends. But is this a good idea? Is this a step in the right direction? Well, you just got to understand that jobs are leaving California in droves. So think about it. If you want to open up a call center or a place where you have not super high paid workers, but workers at the bottom of the pay scale, and you need a lot of workers, why would you open it up in California? At one hand, obviously, so this is going to hurt, even though a lot of people would scoff at it, like, well, we don't want any call centers here. We don't want this. We don't want that. But you are reducing, the more job opportunities there are, that's what boosts pay. If there's more demand for workers in a certain area, then companies are going to compete with each other in the market and boost pay. Just by scaring away jobs and having less jobs around, well, worker pay, especially for the pay class that they're trying to target, is going to go down, unfortunately. And another super insidious thing about this, well, there's so many. One, if you're like a super highly paid tech worker, you're making 200K and above, this is probably not going to affect you at all, or not by much, because a lot of those people are salaried anyway, and with salary, it doesn't matter how many hours you work, or technically, I guess. I know people who are salaried and they have to work a bunch of time and only get paid for 40 hours. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Highly paid people can restructure. They get paid so much that they can just restructure their compensation to comply within this law and basically get paid the same amount. What's really going to hurt people are people who are making around the minimum wage, because they're just going to either get their hours cut, or what else you can't. That's the only thing they can do, just get their hours cut. Because if you're a super productive tech worker or just some kind of worker that makes the company a ton of money, well, either they can eat the expense, but if a company like a giant call center it's the number one their number one expense is employee wages, well, you can't just increase it by 1/5 here, and not to have any kind of negative ramifications. And of course, when people get their hours cut or those jobs go away, or one thing here, it's unfortunately a lot of people don't understand, and this is a crucial issue: the understanding of basic economics. And let's take for example, what is the payroll taxes? Yes. So supposedly, payroll taxes are paid by the company, or people believe that, but that's wrong. Payroll taxes are paid by you. It just doesn't get shown up on your paycheck. Why is that? Well, because your place of employment that's giving you a job has to add up your salary and has to add up the other payroll costs, the costs that are associated with having you employed. So your job, the service that you're providing for the company, pays for the payroll taxes and pays for your salary. They have to add up both. They have to, when they're determining the amount of money they're going to spend on this position, they have to add up both. And a lot of people, I argued with people before, and they're just so dense, it's hard for them to understand. It's like, if you were to increase payroll taxes, would pay go down? If California or whoever the lawmakers increase payroll taxes, would pay go down? Clearly, yes, because if the employer set aside $60,000 for this job and payroll taxes increase by 10%, well, maybe they'll have to eat it on the people who are currently employed. But the next time, this person quits or gets fired, and then have to list this job again, they can only spend $60,000 on this position, and they'll have to just decrease compensation in order to pay them more payroll taxes. Conversely, if you get rid of the payroll tax, there's a lot of people that understand. It's like, well, what if would you agree that when you get rid of the payroll taxes, this is the opposite of increasing? If you get rid of the payroll taxes, the your worker compensation is going to go up. Well, no. The company is greedy. They would just keep the whatever. But it's not about the greed of the company. It's a marketplace. And if other companies are willing to pay more, well, the company has no choice but to compete for labor. So, in the end, it would be an insidious tax. At the end of the day, I don't see people just getting paid more. What would get paid people more is increasing the productivity, as in terms of not them working harder, slaving away harder, in an economic sense. Like, instead of you stacking boxes manually by hand, your employer gets you a forklift, and you can do more work. Therefore, you can create more money for the company. You can be compensated more. So either increase productivity, or maybe there's a higher demand for workers in the area. But with all these laws that California is passing, there's going to be less and less demand for workers. So unfortunately for them, they can't just legislate higher pay as much as they want to. It doesn't work that way. And as a side note, how many people, I think it's like around 5% of the country makes minimum wage. It's like, if the employers, just that statistic alone shows that there is a real marketplace. And if the government was just legislating, like the greedy employers, well, they are greedy, but why don't the employers just pay everybody the absolute minimum wage? That's legally possible. Well, no, only 5% people get paid the minimum wage, because the 95%, well, there's a market. They have some kind of skills. There's a market for those skills. And when the companies compete, they have to bid up wages. So basic economics 101. But let's get into the article here. Article by Ariana Binman from SF Gate. And it's not much here. You can tell this person probably works 2 days a week, but just thinking about it abstractly, like countries or cities with crazy growing economy that's booming. What do you think of? Like little Tokyo, Seoul, Korea. Those, like maybe China. Those people, unfortunately, work a ton. In sluggish economy like Greece or Spain, well, those people probably work like 20 hours a week. So just like, yeah, the quality of life, I'm not here to say what is a better quality of life. That's a personal choice. But just that the government is going to unpurposely regulate, so you have to live one way or the other. Citing the rise of remote work, and they need to protect employees. Riverside Congressman Mark Takano is pushing for a 4-day work week. Why do you need to protect the employees from remote work? It's not like everybody that's working remotely is slaving away. Actually, conversely, some people can get their work done pretty quickly, meet some deadlines, and actually work half days. So the legislation, which was introduced last month, proposes to reduce the average work week from 40 to 32 hours. Quote, after nearly a year-long pandemic that forced millions of people to explore remote work options, it's safe to say we can't and shouldn't simply go back to back to normal, because normal isn't working. Well, the remote work has changed everything. You're not going back to normal. A lot of these remote workers are actually moving out of California and buying big, awesome houses with their California pay. People were spending more time at work, less time with loved ones, and their health and well-being was worsening. All the while, their pay has remained stagnant. While the bill wouldn't get rid of the 40-hour work week entirely, it would instead require employees to pay overtime after 32 hours. Other lawmakers say the bill is significant because it would prioritize the livelihood of the working class. But this is unfortunate. This is so sad. It's like this is the type of workers you're actually going to shoot in the foot. Since the pandemic, workers have begun to demand better labor conditions, higher wages. I mean, how are you helping the middle class of the working class if factories or big call centers or big companies, why would they relocate there and create hundreds of jobs? I mean, all the companies like Toyota, they're moving away to Texas, and because of the state is not competitive. Better deals could be had elsewhere. So why would you throw gasoline on the fire and make it worse with even more regulations? Since the pandemic, workers have begun to demand better labor conditions, higher wages, and basic health benefits, potentially representing a broader labor movement that's starting to take off. And notice this SF Gate is so biased and one-sided, so liberal there's not a single thing about a labor. Like, I just ask, I'm not talking about like a right winger, but just what about just like a basic economist? Like, well, how would this change hours? Or just just call up an economics professor and just give you both sides of the pictures. Of course, they're not going to do that. They're going to talk about some Kellogg's strike, which is how is this any of this relevant? Especially this. Additionally, the number of subscribers to the left-leaning Reddit forum are anti-work, which calls to abolish and reform the labor system, has skyrocketed to 1.7 million. I can tell this author is definitely part of that, or definitely a Redditor. For too long, workers across the country have been forced to put in longer hours as their wages barely budge. It's past time that we put people and communities over corporations and their profits. How? I mean, do you have any like economic studies that corporations would be their profit? This is going to be coming out of their profits. Finally, prioritizing health, well-being, and basic human dignity of the working class rather than employees' bottom line. I mean, these people. The thing is, maybe they're just like too government-minded or never ran a business or anything. But yeah, I'm sure if these are government workers and the government has a monopoly, you can't fire it. It's like you can't fire the people at the DMV. So this will totally work at the DMV. DMV is not going anywhere. It has that one location. Yes, you can increase their pay or pay them for overtime to work on Friday or whatever. But this is the government that can only do that, because they don't care. It's not their money, so they'll just waste more of your tax dollars. But a real corporation, I mean, they'll just relocate. Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus told Fox 11 the 32-hour work week will go a long way towards finally righting that balance. The legislation has yet to be voted on. Adriana Bidman is a California trending news reporter at SF Gate. Follow her on Instagram. news features, culture stories, and critical updates on her cat, Mana. But nowhere does it say maybe expert in policy or economics or anything relevant. Yeah.